What is up, guys? Welcome to a new video. A lot of people have been asking me for this, so I thought we'd dive into the new champion today, XAYAH. She's been out for almost a week now, and it's no surprise she's picked in well over 20% of ranked games on average, even up to 30% on EU and North America, and even banned in 35% more games. In fact, in the 6 days she's been out, she's been played in over 230,000 games in just Plat and Diamond games alone. She's also sitting pretty at a sub 50% win rate right now, and there are a lot of players who are up at 60 and 70% win rate, so the point of this video is to get you away from what these 40% win rate players are doing and into what the 70% ones are. She can be super strong, like she has insane damage when used properly and built properly, but also is just like very good at kiting, so she doesn't really have to rely on her team very much. In this guide then we're going to go over builds, runes, masteries, matchups, who you counter, who counters you, stuff like that, and supports to match up with, as well as some general gameplay tips. Now the most important part about any new champion is what you build on them, but the first thing we can tell is that she is not that good in the lane phase at the moment at all. At 1 and 2 items her win rates are not that impressive at all, but once you start hitting like 3 or 4 items you actually jump up about 10%. Obviously it depends on the game and stuff, but it means that you spike up as a champion at 3 items and you start to do a lot more. This is something I noticed on the PB as well as on live now, so don't expect to go into a game and crap on people straight away. It doesn't really work like that. There are 3 builds though that I think are viable right now, but before that, buying a defensive item on XAYAH is normally a mistake. Like a mix, sure, Frozen Mallet or more Mortius, but buying a Guardian Angel on average right now lowers your win chance by about 10%. Obviously every game is different, but full builds with Guardian Angel don't do that well right now, so just bear it in mind. The blade first into attack speed and crit is the most common, so we're going to start with this, but actually I don't think this is what most people will want to build after this video. Blade is really good on her, right? Buffs her E burst damage as well as using her feathers faster with the attack speed. Your feathers will be a lot of your damage to start with, so getting them out as fast as possible is kind of what you want. The active does also help you a bit more if you do want to fight, and I really like the extra kiting as well, but if you're going to do this you really want a runes honestly, so you can apply the percentage damage to everyone else second. You also have the attack speed steroid on your W, so you're going to apply it even more, and it adds to your AoE damage, right? This build is basically an AoE teamfight build, so that's what you want to keep in mind. Next up, there are 2 options, so most people go for Infinity Edge, but in my opinion triple crit is really what you want to go on XAYAH for E damage as well. You can go Phantom Dancer here to add some more single target damage and kiting, or Infinity Edge for more AoE damage, but it is more expensive. Most people get Blade and Runes, then just random stuff, but this 4 item combo is the best stat wise if you want to go with this type of build. The biggest mistake actually with this build is picking up a Bloodthirster 4th. You do not really need double lifesteal with a kite potential. You also get no cooldown reduction with this, and it makes it harder to use your E and get feathers consistently. So it's a good teamfight build, but this is working because the build synergy is really good, not because it's actually really good on XAYAH. So build number 2 is an earlier spike version and moving into single target damage, which I really like, and personally I think this is the best build. This is the build I'm using at the moment. If you want to see this build in action, by the way, I played it on my second channel today, so I'll throw a link down below for that, but it's Blade like before, and then Black Cleaver second and PD third. So there's 2 things, right? This is technically the highest win rate build in Korea as well as a few other regions, and this gives you way more damage for single target and AoE, which kind of seems weird. How can it be both, right? But basically it's because of your feathers. Like you can see in this clip, feathers are physical damage, so they apply cleaver stacks to anybody they hit. Your Q will apply it to everybody hit. The feathers from your auto attacks will apply it to everyone they hit. Even your E will apply per feather to everyone they pass through. This means you're still going to get the AoE damage naturally from your kit, but you're now reducing your target's armor by 30% and everyone behind them as well. So it means that your blade percentage damage does more, it also heals for more, all your feathers do more damage, your Q, your W, and your E do more as well. All of XAYAH's abilities are physical damage, so it's actually increasing it by a ton. Plus it's actually doing even more because there's 20% cooldown reduction on it, so more abilities, more feathers, and both those do more damage because of the armor shred. It's actually kind of nuts. Remember when I said XAYAH's crap at 1 and 2 items, right? This is so far the only build path that has above a 50% win rate at 2 items. That's how bad she is normally. It's not going to be quite as strong in team fights as a 4 item crit build unless you have more AD damage on your team like from other sources, but it's actually still bloody good. After Cleaver, Phantom Dancer lets you hit more so you can stack this more. It's also damage reduction so you can kite even better. Infinity Edge is going to give you crit damage and finish it up with like a Runes or a Last Whisper rapid fire Bloodthirster. Part of the reason I think this is so good is because it's like the Korean Ashe build that's everywhere right now, but on steroids, because you don't even need the Runes to apply the armor shred to everyone on the enemy team. So let's get into our 3rd build, the Essence Reaver crit build. This is moving away from auto attacks to start with and into more ability and feather damage as well. Cooldown reduction is super good on her, and this will give us 30%. So more abilities, more feathers flying everywhere, and also more crits. Single target damage is going to be a lot higher because of the crits. Your burst though is massively high, so that's really what we're playing around a bit more. Remember, crit increases your E damage as well as the AD from your build, so it can really really mess people up if you catch them properly with it. This is technically also one of the highest win rate builds at 3 and 4 items right now. You're going to be a weaker at 1 and 2, but you really do take off later into the game. It's more of like a personal thing, I guess. Can you sit back and wait a bit more, or do you need a blade and a cleaver so you can play more aggressively? This has got to be the most well-rounded build though if you can last that long in a game. And by the way, it's also the build that Riot internally tested the most and built her kit around. That doesn't mean it's going to be the best always, but it's definitely a plus that Riot designed her thinking, okay, this kit is actually going to work because they can build Essence Reaver. So that's kind of the build stuff out of the way. They're the 3 main ones, and hopefully you have some more stuff to try now and not the first build which everybody is trying right now, and I don't honestly think it's the best. Mastery wise, Fervor seems to be the best though. Something like this page as well you're seeing on screen. You stack it pretty fast and it buffs all of your damage, but to be honest, I think you really need the damage from Fervor. Warders is something I tested on the PB. It would be really nice, but mid-game you lose out on a lot of damage where you already kind of suck. So I would go Fervor, but you can choose between 18-12, which is a bit more damage, and 18-0-12, which is a bit more utility. It's more healing, and also you have a shorter flash cooldown. I reckon 18-12 is slightly better just because all of your damage is AoE, so you're going to do that percentage damage to more than just one person, right? But 18-0-12 is easier to play for when you start out at least. For runes, we can have the standard page. That's what I've seen the most actually. AD, armor, magic resist, and attack speed, just like every other AD. There are a few things to try it though. So attack speed blues instead of magic resist, you might get your ass pounded, but you have more damage. The one I like though is cooldown reduction, or well, scaling cooldown reduction in blues, especially if you're not going to go into the Essence Reaver or maybe Black Cleaver build. You might want to take some CDR in your runes. I know it sounds a little bit odd for an AD carry, but all of her damage is very reliant on cooldown reduction and her abilities, and you do kind of need it actually. CDR per level is 15% if you get all 9 of those blues into cooldown reduction per level. You could just get 6 of them for the 10% as well, which obviously like is level 18, but it does help throughout the game. So these are initial matchups, okay, for this video. Like obviously it haven't been out that long, so this is a good starting point at least to see who she matches up well against and who you really want to avoid. The good matchups, first of all, Ezreal. He's weak in the lane phase. You can power up just like he is going to want to as well, and you also take away his mobility with your root and dodge his ultimate with yours. Jin's a bit of a weird one, but you kind of just overtake him and punish his lack of mobility. Like if he runs at you, then you can kite away pretty easily and root him as well. Kalista, you're both doing very similar jobs, but your root is the key in this matchup. If you can stop her hopping, you can stop her most important asset. This is one where she probably beats you in the lane phase, but like at 2 and 3 items, you're going to overtake her. Tristana is very similar in power curves, like okay in the lane phase, weak-ish 2 items, and then you power up afterwards. So it's a very even game. The difference is you have a lot more AoE damage and kiting though. That's why I think she's better. Now Draven is a surprise for me. I wouldn't really have said this one, but statistically at least, she's actually okay against him. You can kite him really well, and you can dodge his ultimate with hers, which kind of like nullifies his kill potential a little bit. Now there are 2 okay matchups which aren't that bad, probably skill matchups. The Vayne is really hard to set any feathers up with a tumble and stealth though. Plus you can't really dodge anything with your ultimate, so it is actually quite difficult. The good thing is that you kind of get a free lane, so you're going to get more gold. You have like more chance to reach your mid game, and you can actually punish her if you have an aggressive support. With Ashe, you can dodge her arrows, so that saves this matchup. But if you use Xayah's regular build now, then Ashe just does it better and pumps out way more damage. If we look at the bad ones you actually want to avoid, Lucian punishes your lane phase super hard, and his mid game is so good, whereas yours is kind of average. Like I would actually ban him if you want to play Xayah. Caitlyn is a hard matchup. Her range punishes you early. She can kite back as well as you with her net, and in my opinion she has a similar curve but more powerful at every single stage, which kind of sucks for you. People think Xayah is actually good against Kog'Maw, but really not at all. They both get a free lane, but he gets 2 items and takes off much harder than you do, so he's always going to carry. Xayah in general needs time to set up feathers in a fight, right? Twitch kills you before they get that time, and there's no way to escape him either, so it's actually really difficult to play against. Misfortune, finally, her ultimate will ruin you before you even get close. Now technically this is the hardest counter to Xayah right now. This is consistently the lowest win rate versus Misfortune, and mainly because she can burst you and hold you from range. So let's look at supports. Now Xayah works on short burst trades, okay? So any heals unfortunately kind of mess you up because they really nullify the mana you've used on that cooldown. You kind of want to avoid like Sona, Soraka, Lulu, or heavy CC like Braum, Morgana that stops you kiting as well. You are really good against more tank supports though. So like Rakan, Nautilus, Taric, Thresh are not that bad to face actually. You can kite them when they walk forward and they won't really heal it back up after. The kind of support you want to go with Xayah are things that add to her damage. They protect her even more, or they could go aggressive and supply the damage. That is going to be stuff like Sona, Lulu, and Janna, for example, with a sensor. Even Soraka is not that bad at protecting her and buffing her damage. Blitzcrank and Nautilus are good examples of aggressive just because they have a lot of damage themselves in the lane, which makes up for Xayah a little bit. You kind of want to avoid like burst or setup supports though pairing with a Xayah. Like Vel'Koz and Annie, for example, right? They want an AD to apply some burst with them to combo the enemies down. Now Xayah needs some time, so that doesn't really work. Nami and Taric, for example, bubbles and stuns that Xayah cannot really take advantage of, so again, you probably want to avoid it. Finally, some gameplay tips then. I might do a proper video on just Xayah tips, but these are some basics. You really want to kite backwards when you fight, first of all. This lets you maximize your feather damage, and jumping forward is an easy way to get yourself screwed. It's honestly the biggest mistake I see people making on Xayah. They think they have the advantage, you kind of bait them in a little bit, and then you turn on the Xayah and suddenly she's not really able to output any damage because she's used her cooldowns, but the feathers are not in place. You are 10 times better fighting someone running after you because you actually have the feathers behind them. In lane, you also want to try and position feathers to zone the enemy AD. Now, you might not be that strong in an all-in fight, but you are amazing at poking someone with your combo. Your E also has a really long cooldown in lane, so do not blow it in an early fight. Like, it's a lot like your version of a Kalista Ren, so you really do need it for a fight. You always want to auto attack after the first ability use as well, otherwise you're going to waste a feather. Now, feathers are most your damage. You can hold 5, abilities give you 3. So you use a Q, you auto to go down to 2 feathers, and then you W to go back up to 5, and that way you're not wasting any. I know these are quite quick, but we have 2 more. So you're a lot like Lucian when you don't have your Q or W. You do not do that much damage. What you want to do is burst trade with your Q poke, auto attack feathers, and E to slam them all back, and then exit the trade afterwards. It does a lot of damage, and even if they are low afterwards, you really do not want to go back in because you don't have much damage left at all. You need to wait for your cooldowns. One of the things with Xayah is her auto attacks on her own are pretty crap. If you're not using your abilities and you're not using your feather system, then you're really not doing that much at all. Finally, then, your ultimate is your only mobility. So 90% of the time, and I actually mean 90% of the time, by the way, you're using this as a defensive tool, not offensive. Unless you're really sure that you're going to win the fight and you need a quick route, you don't really want to use this for damage. Even though it does a decent amount with the E pullback, you really want to save it to dodge something. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little look into Xayah. I'm losing my voice. I'm going to go get a drink. Remember to stick around if you did enjoy the video. Thank you for watching, but for now, I'm going to leave you with the robots.